And joining me this evening on a special edition of Frankly Speaking is well-known author and somebody who's been carrying on his parallel investigations into what we are calling Karti Gate is Mr. S. Gurumurthy. Mr. Gurumurthy, for the last 3 years, you've been bringing out your own investigations which you've been writing about as far as the Karti Chidambaram investigations are concerned. Mr. Gurumurthy, today, Karti Chidambaram has been sent to a further 3-day custody as far as the CBI investigation into the INEX media case is concerned. Stunning charges have been made by Indrani Mukerjea on the INEX media case. Questions are being raised on whether Indrani Mukerjea's charges can be relied on given the fact that her credibility as a witness in this case are suspect given the fact that she herself is a murder accused. How would you like to comment on the charges made by Indrani Mukerjea that she is handed over $1 million to Karti Chidambaram and those who raise suspicions about the credibility of Indrani Mukerjea as a witness, a credible witness?
If Indrani Mukerjea's words are just oral, not corroborated by documents or circumstances, it can be questioned. But not when it is corroborated by bills raised by Advantage Consulting for a total of $700,000 outside India. So it is not her statement which is on a standalone basis is to be looked into, but in the totality of the circumstances, she was given approval for bringing in 5 crores, but they brought in 305 crores. So a post facto sanction had to be given, which itself was a special action. For that special action, the allegation by Indrani Mukerjea is that $1 million was demanded. In fact, for a special action like this should never have been allowed. Yes, Chidambaram allowed it, which means that he has taken the responsibility of allowing it. For that, Indrani Mukerjea claims to have paid $1 million. And if it is just her oral statement, you could question her as someone who has been criminal and committed offences and all that. But if it is corroborated by bills sent by Karti Chidambaram's company, Advantage Consulting and other companies to INX, then it is not her statement which on a standalone basis is to be scrutinized, but in conjunction with the written documents, which is an admission by Karti Chidambaram companies, yes, we received the money and we billed for it.
But Mr. Gurumurthy, we have a video which Times Now has accessed of the statements made by Indrani Mukerjea. In this, she clearly talks about a September 2007 meeting with former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram in the North Block office of the former Finance Minister, where he asked for help to his companies of his sons, and he asked for this help in foreign remittances. Do you think that statement of Indrani Mukerjea can be relied on, because she says that meeting in North Block was followed up with a meeting with Karti Chidambaram in Hyatt Hotel in Delhi, where this demand of $1 million was made by Karti Chidambaram? Do you think there is interlinkage between Karti Chidambaram's demand for $1 million and the office of the former Finance Minister, Mr. P. Chidambaram?
See, there are 3 elements. That an extraordinary permission was granted post facto by Chidambaram cannot be denied. A 5 crore permit which was sought for was converted into a 305 crore inward remittance, for which a special sanction had to be given, which Chidambaram gave. This is the first point. Second, her allegation is that she met Chidambaram and Chidambaram directed her to Karti, and Karti demanded $1 million. This is oral. Whether she met Chidambaram, whether she met Karti, these are all based on her statement. But that Karti company Advantage Consulting did raise the invoices corroborates the other two meetings, because these are documentary evidence and monies have been sent. And once monies are sent and documents have been raised for that, which means that an extraordinary sanction was given, and it was given because Karti intervened and took the money for that. Whether they met Chidambaram or not is an issue which needs to be further probed, but that he extraordinarily intervened shows that this was not one of those ordinary cases which Chidambaram has handled. So my view is there is a prima facie evidence against Chidambaram and he is answerable for that.
So do you think in the INEX media case that is currently being investigated by the Central Bureau of Investigation, the buck does not stop at Karti Chidambaram? Do you think the former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram has a lot to answer for, especially on questions on how this extraordinary clearance was given in the Foreign Investment Promotion Board, where 4.62 crore was the permission given to INEX Media to bring in foreign direct investment, but actually 305 crore was brought in, for which even a show cause notice was issued to the company?
See, undoubtedly this doesn't stop with Karti, because Karti is nobody. Karti could never have demanded this money, but for the fact he is the son of Chidambaram. Even that is adequate to examine Chidambaram and prosecute Chidambaram. That Chidambaram in addition was in the picture is a more serious allegation, and that has been made by the person who got the permission from the Finance Ministry in the face of a show cause notice which had been issued, and the show cause notice had been nullified by the post facto sanction. So even without Indrani's allegation that Chidambaram, she had a meeting with Chidambaram, even regardless of that, Chidambaram is chargeable under the Prevention of Corruption Act because of the intervention of Karti, which is substantiated by the documents of invoices and remittances. So there is no way Chidambaram can escape prosecution in this matter, and in addition he is answerable to the allegation that he himself was in the picture and directed Indrani Mukerjea to Karti. So in my view there is a clear case against Chidambaram, and if there is no case against Chidambaram, Karti is just taking some commission, and that will not itself constitute an offence. So in my view, without Chidambaram, Karti could never have got that money. So I have no doubt that this matter reaches the doors of Chidambaram.
Mr. Gurumurthy, the fact is Mr. Chidambaram was a minister in the Congress-led UPA government for 10 years. So far, we are talking about one case, which is the INEX media case, where we are talking about $7 lakh that has been raised as invoices, which is in the region of 3 or 4 crore rupees. Do you think somebody like Mr. P. Chidambaram, who as a senior counsel earns that kind of money probably in a day, is this a substantial charge to make against Mr. P. Chidambaram?
This is not a substantial charge. The substantial charge is much bigger. In fact, in September 2015, I first came out with an exposure that Vasan Eye Care, a company with which Advantage Consulting was associated and Karti was associated, made 112.5 crore profit without investing any amount, and into Vasan Eye Care, cash deposits of 223 crores had been made, and Vasan Eye Care was believed to be a benami of Karti Chidambaram. So, when we investigated this, we brought out the income tax department documents and put it in the public domain and made an allegation that 223 crore cash has been, which is a subject matter of investigation for PMLA, has been handled by Vasans, and Karti and Chidambaram have tried to suppress this investigation. Then immediately Karti called me an Aryan dog, and Chidambaram came out with a statement that the whole thing is false, laughable, and he will sue me, and New Indian Express, which carried the article. This was on 17th September. On 21st September, when the Chidambaram statement appeared, New Indian Express challenged him to file the prosecution, which he did not. He fell into silence. Then a month later, we got hold of an affidavit filed by the income tax officer who was being pressurized to toe the line of Chidambaram and Karti, not to pursue the investigation against Vasans. He filed an affidavit in Central Administrative Tribunal against the attempt to transfer him, in which he had mentioned in great detail how Chidambaram's son is associated with Advantage Consulting and bought shares at 100 rupees in that company and sold it at 7,500 rupees to a foreign investor, and he made a total gain of 112.5 crores. And there was no denial of that. The only thing Chidambaram and Karti did was that we have nothing to do with Advantage Consulting. The allegation that we are owning Advantage Consulting is false. This was the statement made at that point. Then on the 2nd December 2015, the Income Tax Department and Enforcement raided the Advantage, not Advantage Consulting, the Vasans Eye Care and related parties. And that is where the most crucial evidence came. That is, Karti owned Advantage Consulting from 2006 to 2011 on record. He had himself admitted it. He said in 2011 he sold away Advantage Consulting, and from then on only his friends were owning Advantage Consulting. But in the raid which was conducted on 2nd December 2015, the Income Tax Department recovered wills written by these 4 friends who were supposed to be owning Advantage Consulting, bequeathing Advantage Consulting shares to Karti's daughter. All the 4 wills written by the 4 parties were witnessed in the same way, in the same language, on the same date, and they had the same format. And they had expressed great love and affection for Karti's father-in-law, who has passed away, that it is because of that man we are now what we are, and so we are bequeathing these shares to Karti's child.
That's right.
This is one part. But their own properties, their own properties are bequeathed to their own children. So there are 2 streams. What is their own, they are giving to their children. What doesn't belong to them, they are giving to Karti. That means the 2011, from 2006 to 2011, Karti owned these shares. 2011 he buried it in benami and got the benamis to execute a will and kept the will in his laptop. This is a clear case of benami holding, which means all that they have been saying that Advantage Consulting does not belong to them is proved to be false, and Chidambaram even threatened to sue me and the Indian Express. He did not, and he would not, and he cannot now. Then I came out with an exposure.
But Mr. Gurumurthy, the question I ask you is, when these wills were recovered 3 years ago, when the challenge for defamation was made by you 3 years ago, when the raids were conducted 3 years ago, when all of this information was conducted 3 years ago, the investigation agencies had this information, then why has it taken these agencies just so long to get up to the stage of arresting Karti Chidambaram? Wouldn't this time have been used to wipe away evidence if that was possible? Number two, does it really show that they have a watertight case if it's taken them so long to get up to this point on evidence that was available to them 3 years ago?
I will tell you the two reasons why the case got prolonged, at least from 2016 April onwards to 2017 end. There was an extraordinary effort to stop the investigation through courts, and the court showed unbelievable amount of compassion for Karti. So no other taxpayer, no other person against whom the income tax department or enforcement would take action would be entitled to this kind of compassion from courts. When the courts often interfere, grant a stay, you file an affidavit.
Are you insinuating something against the court?
I am not insinuating. I am stating the facts. For example, the Supreme Court is looking into an Article 32 petition from Mr. Chidambaram that his dignity has been affected. You know, the Supreme Court has decided no one can approach the Supreme Court except in the case of something like habeas corpus directly. They have to go to the High Court under, they cannot move under Article 32. Now the Supreme Court itself is considering. Maybe the Supreme Court has its own yardstick. But in how many cases the Supreme Court has directly taken up petitions under Article 32? But once you take it up, then the agencies also take a step back. Now they may not because they have arrested. Previously, whenever the courts intervene, the agencies will take a step back. That is how this whole process has been delayed. Otherwise, a complete case had been made out by the New Indian Express and me by May 2016 that Karti held Advantage Consulting by benami. Once this benami holding is accepted, then all the activities in which Advantage Consulting was involved become the activities of Karti. So this investigation was impeded through appropriate judicial proceeding, but the court should normally have said let the investigation go through. But there is always the question of political vendetta. Political vendetta can stop investigation against anybody in the country. So my view is there is a concerted effort to stop this investigation which delayed it by at least, to my knowledge, 18 months. Only when Karti did not answer the questions, when he began taunting the officials, they have been provoked to arrest, and obviously this period must have been used. He went several times abroad. He must have done his best to destroy evidence.
Mr. Gurumurthy, there's another question. There is another deal. There was one FIPB clearance for the INEX media. There is another FIPB clearance for Aircel Maxis deal. In the Aircel Maxis deal, which was a 3,500 crore deal, which is approximately $800 million deal, there are allegations that we are investigating into these allegations that have been made by agencies that in this deal too, there was sidestepping of the entire process. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs is supposed to be clearing all decisions that are above 200 crores. But in this case, the Aircel Maxis deal was split in such a manner that it was termed to be a 180 crore deal, which is why it was cleared at the level of the finance minister. In this case too, Mr. Chidambaram seems to have cocked a snook at the laid down procedure, despite the fact that there were red flags that were drawn up by officials in the Department of Economic Affairs.
Obviously, Mr. Chidambaram had no power to clear this, and he had cleared it, and he has to explain it. All that I am saying is Chidambaram cannot be issuing statements through newspapers and giving interviews and say there is nothing wrong. You ask this official or that official. the very fact that there are two kinds of dealings that have taken place. One, FAPP clearance has been given on the basis of the total capital brought in, including the share premium. There are cases in which share premium had been excluded and only based on the capital brought in, sanction had been given, and those sanctions have been given by Chidambaram. If we apply the same yardstick, what Chidambaram did, he has to explain first. And without explaining that, he says, go and ask the FAPB officials. That is not correct, he is only evading. I am of the view, Chidambaram has really granted favor in case of INX and also Aircel Maxis, for which he is clearly answerable.
Mr. Gurumurthy, also through emails, Karti Chidambaram has admitted, because there are emails of Advantage Strategic Private Limited where he is written to the British High Commission, he is written to British Airways, where he does say that he is the MD of the company, and the MOUs of the company that are signed do declare him as the owner of the company, the managing director of the company. So can Karti Chidambaram at any point hold himself at an arm's length from Advantage Strategic Private Limited?
From the word go, he has been lying, and Chidambaram has been lying, that they have nothing to do with Advantage Consulting. After we tendered this wills, I tell you, the wills also read as if, you see, I acknowledge the role of my friend, Dr. Rangarajan, that is the father-in-law of Karti, in my life as a friend, philosopher and guide. I am deeply indebted to his family. As a token of my love to his family, I bequeath to his beloved daughter, Aditi Nalini Chidambaram, so and so, my title, interest and other rights in the following companies: Advantage Strategy Consulting, Kriya FMCG Distributors, Rockstar Technology Solutions Private Limited, and my own personal assets, other assets, I bequeath to my children. This shows these shares never belonged to him. So when these documents were put in the public domain, even if Karti had not been called the managing director, he had not called himself as the authority on behalf of the company, that these companies are benami companies of Karti is established, is punishable under the Benamis Act itself. So there is no way he can escape. And Chidambaram, in fact, if Chidambaram had said, if my son has done anything wrong, let there be inquiry, then he would stand on a different footing. From day one he has been defending Karti. From day one he has been defending, saying that Advantage Consulting never belonged to the family. No one is interested in it. We have nothing to do with it. He was filing supplemental affidavit for Karti. So I will only club Chidambaram and Karti, and I would not treat them differently so far as Vasana Care PMLA is concerned. The profit that Karti made, 112 crores, is concerned, and whatever money Advantage Consulting India, which owns the Advantage Consulting Singapore, in which the Enforcement Directorate believes a huge empire abroad has been built, is clearly Chidambaram family accumulated assets.
Mr. Gurumurthy, people of this country want to ask one question. When there was a case of 1,72,000 crores of the 2G spectrum scam, in the court, the investigation agencies have not been able to prove their case, and all the accused have been let off. Do you think when they carry out a case which is for 4 or 5 crore against what are seen as extremely well positioned legal brains like P. Chidambaram and Karti Chidambaram, will they be able to prove their case legally against such individuals? That's what people in this country are asking. Or once again, will it go down in history as a case that was a case in political vendetta?
You see, this political vendetta is an argument which should be dismissed straight away. I have myself gone through CBI arrest, and I have faced, Indian Express has faced all kinds of prosecutions which were political vendetta because we carried on a campaign to sack the Rajiv Gandhi government. But I never uttered one word against the CBI. I said the CBI is doing an honest investigation, but the government is using the CBI to fix me. This was admitted by the CBI itself because they arrested me on a forged letter. This is not the case here. None of the documents which have been tendered against Karti is questioned. The wills are not questioned. The bills are not questioned. That Advantage Consulting is their company is unquestionable. Where is the vendetta in this? So this is the first part. So I rule out political vendetta simply because Chidambaram is writing articles against Modi. That will not give him the defense that this case has been filed because he is writing articles. I think it is such a childish claim. This is one. Number two, so far as 2G is concerned, the then government was never keen about the prosecution. The Supreme Court had to intervene. If the government was keen about the prosecution, why should the Supreme Court intervene? So my view is the then government was not sincere about the investigation, and it had let off many people whose name I do not want to mention. They are bigwigs, and they fixed only the low-level officials, and in the process they made the investigation so weak that even the court's intervention could not save the prosecution. So there is no way you can compare 2G with any prosecution which any government sincerely committed to the prosecution, where there will be no mercy shown for the offender. You cannot compare these two. So I am not saying simply because 2G prosecution has gone waste, other prosecutions will also go waste. I don't feel that way. However mighty the lawyers on the other side might be, documents will speak for themselves.
Mr. Gurumurthy, you've often said that despite the fact that Mr. Chidambaram is now out of power, he wields a lot of influence in the income tax department, in various departments of the finance ministry, of various investigation agencies. Do you really believe that's true when the fact is that his son has been arrested? Do you still think that he wields a lot of influence?
Yes, I do. I have experienced it myself. The amount of influence he wielded even under this government to suppress the investigation into the Vasan eye care. Most of the income tax department officials are not independent in their mind. They have got some favor of posting here, posting there, and plum postings. All these have been done by the deep Congress state in the last 40-50 years. So there is no legally directed fair investigation, and it was always based on favors and disfavors. And so when that very establishment is to do this, unless one pursues it with keenness, the whole thing gets delayed. That is how this delay, income tax department is particularly responsible for the delay, because they didn't go after Vasan in the manner they should have done. It is 223 crore cash in. Cash was deposited. It is in the income tax department investigation report. So my feeling is that Chidambaram does wield, particularly in the south, I don't know about the north, he wields considerable influence in the income tax department, and that is one of the reasons why this investigation has got delayed. And the deep Congress state is still there, and because people have been appointed by them, transfers have been made by them, and so this is bound to be the problem of any non-Congress government.
But Mr. Gurumurthy, the fact is that on the one hand, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been talking about a Congress Mukt Bharat. But you're saying that agencies, departments of the government are certainly not Congress Mukt even as of now?
Obviously, because every time they feel, the next election will be our election. It seems, I heard from the television reports that Karti even said that I am going to be the minister in charge of you. Be careful. Imagine an official listening to this, even 1%, he thinks if this man becomes tomorrow, what will happen to me? So, in a democracy, change of governance is possible. And so if a man says, I will come and fix you, then the official will think, why should I stick my neck into it? So this is normal. So that this is happening is important. That somebody is threatening like this is important, and not somebody is fearing. He will fear. That is how the deep state works. And unless, like Congress has kept others away from power. Unless Congress is kept away from power for a reasonably durable period of time, the Congress influence in the system will not reduce.
But Mr.
Below the risk
Gurumurthy,
levels.
even today, do you stand on your dare to Mr. P. Chidambaram? Do you still dare him to sue you for all the statements that you've made against Advantage Strategic Consulting and the ownership of the other companies that you say his son and his family are connected to?
100%. On 21st September, I challenged him to sue. Then in May 2016, I challenged him to sue. I earlier wrote, will Mr. Chidambaram stop lying at least now? Then I told him, will you sue me at least now? And even now I am saying, I am welcoming him to sue me. Then only I will get an opportunity to cross-examine him in the open court, because anyone who files a defamation action will have to first step into the witness box. And I don't think he has the guts to do it.
Mr. Gurumurthy, do you think it's going to be Chidambaram next who needs to be questioned?
He has to be questioned. I don't think there is any alternative left to the investigating agencies not to question him, because from the beginning he has been a party to defending Karti, Advantage Consulting. Nothing wrong has happened, and now his name has been mentioned and he is involved in giving clearances. Obviously, this is a case in which he has to be examined.
Mr. Gurumurthy, tonight, as we look at the fact that the judge who was listening to this case for custody has clearly said that normally police custody is not lightly granted, but looking to the facts and circumstances of the case and seriousness of the offence, and on the request of the investigating agency to enable to collect material evidence upon interrogation the accused by placing him in police custody, such a custody and a request can be granted. So they also recognize about the seriousness of the offence. Do you think the so-called lightness with which Karti Chidambaram has been referring to this entire case, that it will collapse in a day, may not be the case given the order that's come out today?
See, obviously, I don't think Karti understands many things. I mean, I don't want to speak outside the cases. He has been a spoilt brat. So obviously, he thinks that he can control the situation. I am speaking as a person who has talked to people about what the man is. Minus Chidambaram, Karti is nobody. And when Chidambaram is there, Karti talks flamboyantly, and I don't think he should be taken seriously. Actually, the documents and his conduct should be taken more seriously than what he says or how he waves his hands.
Well, Mr. Gurumurthy, I thank you very much for joining me on Frankly Speaking. We'll continue to follow this story. We'll continue to find out and investigate more linkages and we'll continue to trail you as you bring out more exposés on this count. Thank you very much for joining me on Frankly Speaking.
Thank you. Thank you.